I want to retire at 40. Is that something that's even possible or feasible, Michael?
Why do the rich keep getting richer? They have access to different stuff that's superior. The 1% don't focus on products. They focus on systems. They build systems. Systems are things that are habit changing. It's creating intent with our behavior, but it's reverse engineered. It's a holistic approach.
The rich, they're looking at the end from the beginning, and then they put systems and processes in place to help continue to build their wealth. What's the reverse effect? How are the 99% of us looking at things in comparison?
Yeah, well, the 99% are stuck in the day to day, right? They're kind of their day to day, hour to hour, and a lot of people are just trying to get by. Is the reality.
What are the high earners doing? How do they view mindset? What mindset do they have on money, and what habits do they have in place?
Time is money. Time is money. And you can look at that in two different ways. One is your personal time. Are you getting compensated in the way that is going to be impactful? And just doing that kind of gut check of, am I getting paid, or is the work that I'm doing really valued for my time is just one major mindset thing that comes in first.
We're stepping high, we're chasing dreams. Selena Hill, setting the scene. Life's a story, let's unfold. Sharing wisdom, tales untold.
Hey fam, welcome to Over the Hill, the podcast that helps you ascend to new heights in relationships, success, and finance, and equips you to build the life you deserve. I'm your sister in purpose, Selena Hill, and today I have the privilege to speak with Michael Scarpati, a seasoned entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in the financial industry. He is also the founder and CEO of RetireUS, a fintech platform that makes it incredibly easy and affordable to work with independent fiduciary professionals so that anyone can build a clear path to financial freedom with a trusted expert. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
So I want to start by just asking you, what was your relationship with money like growing up?
Yeah, it's different for everybody. It was for myself, it was relatively tight. Came from a household that was divorced household. So my mother was the major primary caretaker, and she came from a banking family. My grandfather worked his way up in back in the day from being the janitor of this bank to actually becoming the president and CEO of this bank. It was a really Horatio Alger story. Very, very incredible story. But that they were dirt poor growing up, and that coupled with a banking mentality, those two things make you kind of hold on to money pretty carefully. So it was definitely a very frugal upbringing, and it made me at a young age super conscious of spending and money habits, kind of where the money flows and where the money goes.
I wanted to start there because this platform you have, which is incredible, it empowers people, even those from marginalized communities, to understand money better and understand how to get money to work for you. And I feel like there had to have been some, point of inspiration or motivation for you to even start such a big project. So let's talk about that. When and why did you launch RetireUS?
Yeah, the major jumping off point was COVID. It really shifted. 15 years I've been in financial services, really in the financial planning industry. And it shifted dramatically with COVID. Back 2019, it was traditional that this business operated by traveling to the household of the client, sitting at the kitchen table, shaking the hands and chatting about the finances in person. And then when all of that shifted virtually, what we found is there was not really a great way to keep that human element within the comprehensive financial planning process. And RetireUS was gradually born through that process of really us trying to work it out with our own existing households and client base. And once we started to kind of find a nice recipe for that, we we really recognized through the experience that we've had just in the industry that a lot of people don't have access to really high quality advice. And the simpler that we can make this process, the more frictionless and the more affordable, the more people that we can positively impact at the end of the day. And we really truly believe that everybody deserves to be able to build at least a clear path to financial freedom, understand what they need from their savings and how to get there. And if we can do that with trusted fiduciary experts, ones that are in your best interest, they have to work in your best interest. That's a major, major unlock for people. So that's really where it comes from. It's just trying to make an impact however we can. And organically, this thing started to kind of come together. And here we are 15 years later since starting in the financial services industry, and we feel like we got something that can really make a positive impact.
And before you launched your platform, what were you doing beforehand?
So we were running an independent financial planning practice. So it was independent fiduciary financial planning. So one of the major things that most people aren't truly aware of in the financial services industry, there's three types of financial professionals. There's the benefits professional, which is through the workplace, right? So you have a 401k, you have the benefits professional that you can call to ask questions about that. The second is the product-based professional. So this dominates the industry. It's about 85 to 90% of the quote unquote financial advisors and financial planners, but really they're only compensated on products that they implement for you, which is great. I mean, you need products, you need investment products to get to your goals. The problem is that only 10, 11% are fiduciary, which means they're legally obligated to give you advice that's in your best interest. And if you want to work with one of those in the product side, you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to unlock that lane in the traditional services sector. So most people are just priced out of the market, and they're not getting access to types of investments that the top 1% to 2% really are, and they're powerful. And then the third type is, we call them a systems-based professional. These are the independent certified financial planners. They're fiduciary as well, but they're really building process and systems, helping you create behavioral change with how you manage all the different facets of your finances, how the current situation interacts with your short-term savings and your retirement. And the other issue there, though, is accessibility. That systems-based professional generally works on a flat fee, and it's $5,000 to $10,000 to keep them on retainer for the year. So again, most people are just kind of priced out of the market. What the platform does, what we've been able to put together with the platform, is kind of set it right in the middle there and get you access to the systems-based planner, that independent fiduciary CFP that's building systems, and then also connect you with one of these product-based financial advisors who are also fiduciary, but they don't have any asset minimums, the way that we've set it all up. So you can get access to these incredible investment strategies that generally are limited for people with hundreds of thousands in investable assets.
And I want to talk about that because I understand you say that financial literacy gives people tools, but what people really need is financial consciousness, right? It's that extra mile. How do you define this term, and how is RetireUS helping people develop what you say is financial consciousness?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that we get lost a lot of times in literacy, and I don't want to downplay the importance of literacy. It's the tools, it's the foundational understanding of what things are and how they work. The financial consciousness is the why. Why are these important, and how does it interact with the big picture? How aware are we of the decisions that we make? Once we understand these decisions, are we really conscious of the impact? And personal finance is something that takes time and builds and compounds, and it's not an overnight success story for 99.9% of people. It's something that requires diligence and good habits, right? We're human beings, and habits make us, they also break us, but you either have positive ones or negative ones. It's just the reality of how it works. financial consciousness helps us understand what one first is our habits, right? That's the key starting point. That's the mindfulness, we call it, becoming more mindful of just how money moves in your life and what's your relationship with it. And that comes from some of the stuff that you touched on in the beginning, right? It's what's your money origin story? Was it all come from? It all kind of tracks back to there. And so it's making both of those components, just the tools. It's not only just what they are and how to use them. It's what's the overall impact and the why they're important to you and where you're headed.
And I like that you touched on just mindset and behaviors. You mentioned good habits. And I want to use that to segue into what successful people are doing, what mindsets they have, what habits, what behaviors. So, what are some of the secrets or strategies that the top 1% is doing when it comes to money?
I love this question. I love getting into this stuff because they are secrets. It's kind of crazy the way that the information has flown to the 99% of people is it's all been kind of the same repackaged stuff over and over for years. It's stocks, bonds, it's mutual funds, and pay down your debt. And that's kind of the gist of it, right? And trying to master those components. And I don't want to downplay their importance. The major thing that's missed though is the 1% don't focus on products. They focus on systems. They build systems. Systems are things that are habit changing. It's creating intent with our behavior, but it's reverse engineered. It's a holistic approach. You're looking at the end first of what's my vision for the future? What's my vision for the future? And how do I reverse engineer all the way down to my behavior now and how all of the components of my financial household work? How do I pull them all together and put together a system of processes, how I'm going to save, how much I'm going to save, where I'm going to save, what types of investments that money flows into, how those investments are going to ultimately be taxed in the long run. There's so many components, right? How we're measuring risk, how we're making sure that if the market crashes, we're not exposed to any of that in one bucket of money versus having another bucket of money that is actually going to be growing more aggressively, and how that's going to work for our withdrawals once we hit retirement. There's all these variables and facets, and the 1% focus on building systems and processes for how they all work together first. Then they plug products into those systems, and then they supplement the benefits that they have through the workplace with the products that they've put into effect. So it's just the approach. The approach is the major difference. And then with that, there's just access. That's the other big secret, right? With access, with money comes access. Why do the rich keep getting richer? They have access to different stuff that's superior. And part of our mission is to give everybody the same access. We think that it's very possible to create that level of financial, product accessibility to anyone, regardless of their income limits or their asset, wealth levels.
So Michael, you're saying, the rich, they're looking at the end from the beginning, and then they put systems and processes in place to help continue to build their wealth. What's the reverse effect? How are the 99% of us looking at things in comparison?
Yeah. Well, the 99% are stuck in the day to day, right? They're kind of their day to day, hour to hour, and a lot of people are just trying to get by is the reality, and that pulls us out of our awareness of being able to look at the big picture, right? It's just the nature of it. And so what we encourage everyone to do with this idea of mindfulness is kind of find some time. It doesn't take a lot. With the RetireUS checkpoint, we have a tool that you can use. It takes 4 minutes, but what it's going to do, it's going to assess your current financial situation. So your retirement pacing, your tax planning, and your risks. We call them red flags, your financial red flags. These are the keys. It's starting to become more aware of what are the things we actually should be focused on. What are some of those bigger picture items that we can start kind of checking off the list? And again, it's all financial consciousness is all about awareness. What's in our awareness, right? Most people have a mindset, unfortunately, because of the nature of reality, that's a scarcity based mindset. And the focus is getting by. And it's a shift to an abundance based mindset, which is taking a breath and visualizing, okay, where do I want to go? How do I want to realign this for my financial future? What is my vision, right? Is it a retirement vision? Is it buying a house? Is it getting out of debt? We need to stop and clarify, where are we actually going? Most people are navigating without really a map and any true direction. It's just trying to get through another day. And that's the shift that we're focused on making.
Right. And we're stuck in that vortex. For you, did you personally have to make that shift? And if so, how did you do that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I came out of college with directly into this industry, which is really a eat what you kill type of an industry. You start with nothing. You start with no clients, no book of business. I was in that fiduciary product side of the business to start, and it was very, very challenging to get my footing. It was a lot of ramen noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was a lot of very diligent spending. The advice that I've always given to the team members that we've brought into this industry was learn how to kind of live on the cheap. Learn how to live being very frugal and very conscious of spending. Learn how to live on a little, because if you can do that, it starts to kind of set this habit, this initial habit of not overextending your finances. And if you can do that, especially at a space where you're not making a lot of money, now as you continue to build your skills and your knowledge in whatever position you are, and you can move up the ladder of income, your lifestyle will stay, your habits will kind of stay where where you align them. Now that just creates a gap, a surplus that you can start to actively reinvest in your future and yourself. And I think that's the biggest key, is starting to give yourself a little bit of space and understanding of, all right, what does my life really cost? And the two major things that we focus on in this process when you get into our cash flow stage is, we call it critical cash flow and non-critical cash flow. I think that's a really good starting point for people that are trying to get out of the day-to-day, is just taking a quick look at where the money goes and what's critical and what's non-critical. And critical is the major things like household, food, but food can get categorized into non-critical pretty quickly, right? Is the food all coming from the grocery store, or is it all coming from Uber Eats and DoorDash? That's a major difference in financials. So starting to understand that is the key part of being more mindful, and then it allows you to kind of start making choices of where you want to set these baselines for yourself. And the better that you do that, then it starts to create more space for savings and wealth accumulation.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I wanted to ask are, what are some of the daily and weekly financial habits that high earners practice? And I know me, just from observation, like I know people who look at money, like soon as they get it in their hand, they can't wait to spend it. It's like money is there to spend on whatever they want in that moment. And I know on the opposite side, like I'm more of a saver, right? I try to be as conscious as possible about where my money is going and how to maximize and capitalize on it. So again, what are the best practices? Like, what are the high earners doing? How do they view mindset? What mindset do they have on money, and what habits do they have in place?
Time is money. Time is money. And you can look at that in two different ways. One is your personal time. Are you getting compensated in the way that is going to be impactful? And just doing that kind of gut check of, am I getting paid, or is the work that I'm doing really valued for my time, is just one major mindset thing that comes in first. But then the second component of it is, from the habit side, time is money, meaning compounding interest is your biggest tool. Compounding interest is your biggest tool, which means the more time the earlier that you start, the more impactful that this process, the earlier you start, the more impactful the savings is gonna have over time, is the reality. So, for example, if you start saving at age 30 versus age 40, and I may misrepresent the numbers here, but I think it was starting with about $10,000 or saving $10,000 a year. I'll see if I can look it up for us. It was like $10,000 a year, and the difference was dramatic. It was like a difference of $500,000 from 30 to 40. That extra time is just so impactful when the money is compounding and growing. And most people skip that. They're like, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. And that time is so precious and so valuable. So the 1% make sure that they're saving money consistently and early. And, especially when they're having kids, those kids get college accounts and savings accounts. Even if you can just start right when they're born and start setting some money aside, the major difference that makes in the long run is incredible.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because time is money, and when it comes to retirement, we know that a lot of people who are at the age of retirement are banking on what they did with their time and their money decades prior. And I wanted to talk about that because boomers right now, a lot of them are a little uncertain. 401k plans are not doing the best because of the market. There's massive layoffs, there's tariffs, there's just so many things. Like the stock market is crashing one day, then it's up again. What do you say to folks who are like, I'm ready to retire right now and I sort of did everything right, but because of the economy, I don't feel safe, financially safe?
Yeah, it's a really timely point, and it's challenging for a lot of people. I mean, especially we're doing a ton of work right now in the federal government. The stuff that's going on in this federal government layoff is insanity. The time people are given after 20, 30 years of service with the promise of a pension and health coverage and retirement, and then all of a sudden in the blink of an eye, it's all in jeopardy. And they're only given weeks to make a decision whether to leave or risk being laid off. And it starts with a couple of things. One is knowing your numbers. So the things with the boomers, what we found is that most of the boomers that we work a lot with the boomer generation. It's actually where I think we add the most value as a platform. What I found is two major things with the boomers that they're missing right now is most don't have a very clear understanding of the number that they need to comfortably retire. What's their magic number? That's a big gap for a lot of people. If you don't have that, it's impossible to understand when you can make that decision, right? If you actually have enough to step away and not run the risk of running out of money. But two, it really makes you have a hard time understanding how to invest the money, right? What's the level of risk that you can take? What we find more times than not is that most boomers are closer to retirement than they think in terms of their savings. They have enough, and they should be really prioritizing protection over accumulation, meaning they have a lot more to lose when something like this happens with the stock market than they have to gain. And that really should dramatically change the dynamic of how you're approaching your 401k or your retirement savings. The second component of it is most of them lack systems, right? Most of them lack systems. If you have a system in place, a retirement system means we've quantified those really 2 to 3 key things. One is how much do you need to have saved up, right? It starts with us understanding what's our lifestyle going to cost. Know what our lifestyle is going to cost in retirement. We can quantify how much money we need to have in savings. We can make it very clear. And if we know that number and we look at our retirement timeline, we can start to better align. Well, right now, if the market crashes, you're going to lose 30%, right? But you only need 2% over the next year in order to hit your retirement goal. This is really we need to change this dramatically right now because we don't know what can happen. And so having that key information allows you to put a system in place where we have specific amounts of money that we know we need to protect, and we can't allow a market crash to dictate whether or not we're going to be able to step away from retirement. Unfortunately, 99% of people don't have true systems. They just have a portfolio of assets. They have the products. And that's the key thing. So right now, if you're a boomer, there's been a little bit of a good pickup in the market. I would really encourage you to come to RetireUS and start to evaluate those numbers. The first step in the process, we call it goal analysis, and it's understanding that magic number. Well, what are those magic numbers that you need for retirement? And then it helps us better assess what we should be doing with the savings that we have to protect it and make sure that it's going to be there regardless of what happens in the market.
And when people sign up for your platform, can they speak to another human expert? Like, exactly how are they advised?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one of the key things. So our vision for this entire organization and the mission behind it is to disrupt the financial services industry with what we call a better path to financial freedom. And that's one that's guided by a fiduciary, meaning it's in your best interest. It's affordable and it's easy. It's not going to take a lot of time for you. That's the biggest reason people actually don't move forward in this process is it's just going to take too much time. And traditionally that's accurate. It takes hours of time. And our goal is to reduce that friction, make it affordable, make it accessible to work with the best. Now, the vision though is blending human relationships with technology to make fiduciary financial planning fast, easy, and affordable. And that is the core component of the platform. It's not a robo advisory type of a relationship. You're getting tagged with a dedicated team of financial professionals, an independent certified financial planner, independent financial advisor who's a fiduciary product specialist, and a full support team. And you're working directly with them through virtual meetings, but you're working directly with them to get everything aligned and get you feeling comfortable and confident.
Michael, I want to tell my mom about RetireUS. So she's 63. I think she was planning to retire at 65, but it looks like her company right now is downsizing and they're sort of forcing retirement on her. I guess that's something that's a common practice in Trump's second term. Now she does have quite a bit of savings. I don't want to give all her business out there, but she saved up a nice amount of money that I think could probably last her for a few years. If she signs up for RetireUS, what exactly, how would she be advised? What next steps should she take, especially if she is laid off, God forbid?
First of all, thank you for thinking of that. We're honored to be a resource however we can. So here's how it works. You get onto the website, you go to RetireUS, and you take that financial assessment, financial checkpoint. What it's going to do is it's going to diagnose your situation in about 4 to 5 minutes, and it'll recommend a subscription. So there's 3 different subscription tiers that we offer. Basic planning is really around the current situation, the short-term goals, risk, and retirement. That's the starter entry-level plan. $60 a month is all it costs. If you pay annually, it's actually the allocated cost is $40 a month. And once you check out with that plan, you complete a profile on the platform. It takes about 15 minutes. Complete a profile, take a couple of photos to upload your statements or upload PDFs of your statements. And then you get paired with your planning team and you start our financial planning cycle. So the way that we do this is instead of making it this giant, overwhelming process, we segment the financial planning process into 2 key stages: goal planning and cash flow planning. So goal planning comes first, and it's really about effectiveness. It's really about where am I at now in relation to where I want to be? And it's getting those numbers squared away first, and then making sure that the investments that we have, the savings, are absolutely in alignment for the needs, the risk level, and the timeline. Once that's in place, then we start to kind of track cash flow and get a real basic understanding of what is the lifestyle really costing. We're going to draw a line in the sand in the beginning, but then we want to make sure that that line is accurate. And through cash flow analysis, we can start to one, get a much clearer picture of, is the retirement lifestyle cost that we set correct? And then 2, start to create levels of efficiency. Right? So cash flow is all about efficiency. Where am I saving? Right? How's it going to ultimately be taxed? How am I going to withdraw those assets? The cash flow when we go to retire, where is it coming from? What's the best way to create longevity in our accounts? And that cycle really just continues indefinitely. So goal planning is generally the first 6 months. And then when I track things, cash flow planning ends up being the next 6 months. And then life moves, inflation changes, markets fluctuate, and we can constantly reassess. So we go back to goal planning, back to cash flow planning, and it gets us into a nice healthy rhythm of consciousness around our financial situation and our needs and the intention behind our decisions.
Okay, so want to shift gears a bit for the Gen Zers who are watching, those in their 20s who say, ambitious enough, who say, you know what, I want to retire at 40. Is that something that's even possible or feasible, Michael? And if so, what steps should they be taking?
I love the ambition and vision of the Gen Z. They're great. I'm a millennial, but a lot of respect to the Gen Z generation. And the first thing I would say is time is your ally. So start now, right? If you want to retire, the interesting thing, I think Gen Z's done a better job at defining retirement than say the boomer Gen X. It's more binary in the later generations, whereas retirement can mean a lot of things, right? This financial independence, retire early, the FIRE movement, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be working, right? It just means that you don't have to work to get through your basic lifestyle, right? You can fund your life and then go continue to make money doing things that you're just much more passionate about and things that make more of an impact or a difference. And so it's really the first thing is just the nomenclature for retirement can be a little limiting, right? Of like, what does that actually mean? I think the Gen Z is a little bit more open to seeing that as an objective where it gives you just more freedom and flexibility of what your employment status needs to be. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing is just time. Start saving. Like that is the asset, right? So even if it's $10, $50, $100 a month, just set it and forget it, get it out of your mind and get used to living without that money, right? It goes down to setting that habit. You do that for 6 months, your lifestyle will adjust is the reality, right? Your lifestyle will adjust. So just force the issue, right? Force the issue because the time, and make sure it's not just going into a savings account. That's the other thing. It should be going into something that's earning interest. I would just put it into, S&P index fund is an easy one for anybody, but that time is the biggest thing. So don't just talk about it, be about it. Like actually get started and save money. That'll get you there closer. 40's aggressive, but it's we live in different time too. So who knows what that could mean.
Speaking of the time we live in, a lot of us millennials and maybe even some older Gen Zers are thinking about what retirement may mean for us in a few decades or so. There's a lot of talk with Social Security running out. We know the Trump administration is actually targeting a lot of cuts there, as well as with Medicare. So with your expertise, what would retirement look like for us millennials and older Gen Zers?
When we do planning for Gen Z and millennial, we tend to not count Social Security. Most people are more comfortable planning for it not to be there. The reality is the Social Security system's been broken for a very long time. The numbers do not add up. It's a little bit of a house of cards, the way that the money flows in and then is out. And it's unlikely. Something has to change is the reality. I wouldn't bank on it being what it is now. I don't think there will be nothing, but it's better to plan for the worst and hope for the best than, especially if you have the time like you do in the younger generations. So my opinion is I would plan to not have it be there at all. And then, whatever does end up being there ends up as a little bit of, bonus fun money in the retirement years.
Well, that's unfair because we're all paying Social Security. It's coming directly out of our checks.
Yeah, it's definitely not fair, but it's definitely not fair. But I think it's more realistic for us to adopt that mindset because the alternative is we bank on it and we are more frivolous with our money now. We miss that time, right? That is our asset. And then we get there and now we got to work longer. So I would suggest just try to come to terms with maybe it's not going to be there, or if it's not going to be as robust, pretend like it won't be, and quantify your numbers as if it's not. And then, let's hope for the best. Let's hope it all works out.
Yeah, I just want to say my grandmother, after she retired, she lived off her pension and Social Security check, and she lived very comfortably. The house was paid off, and we had, weren't rich, but it was a surplus, never lacked anything. And you're saying, Michael, those days are gone when you can depend on a pension and Social Security. We have to plan as if those things will not be in place.
Yeah, definitely. And just to be clear, I think Social Security will get reduced and go away to some capacity. I don't think it will disappear for the later generations. I think that there's something there that will continue stable. But you just hit another key note, which is pensions. Companies have really gotten away from that. That was the retirement plan. And to your grandmother's story is a great one that is becoming far and fewer between as people transition to retirement now, because most companies, the federal government is one of the last major organizations that really has a strong pension system. Private sector, it's super rare now for someone starting out now or someone from the younger generation to have access to something like that.
And why is that? I mean, does that account for just corporate greed, or is there some reasoning behind why companies no longer give out pensions?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say it's corporate greed. It's just economics of the corporate structure. It's just challenging. It's what they call a defined benefit plan, which is right now I'm going to guarantee you something, and I really don't have a lot of control over how long I'm going to have to pay that out to you for. But every single year, that check needs to come. It's something that I'm legally obligated to pay you. And so it's tough for businesses to commit to that for employees. Whereas the popular thing now is more of either defined contribution plan, where they'll say, listen, I'll help you towards your retirement. I'll give you X amount this year while you're working for us. And we encourage you to save on top of it. But it's challenging for the businesses. What they've done is they've started to do buyouts. The big thing you see is the pensions will, the businesses, as people get closer to retirement or as they start to kill the pension, they look at, they offer the buyout program for the individual to say, you're supposed to get $30,000 a year, let's say, from the pension, but we'll give you $400,000 now, right? So you could take a lump sum and then, there's an opportunity that if you got to crunch those numbers, right? If you live 30 years of retirement, $30,000 a year is probably a better deal. So it's just, but that's the business mentality of it, right? That's a hard check to write. If someone has longevity, we're living longer as human beings. It's tough for a business to sustainably maintain that obligation. But so, I mean, it makes sense as to why they're going away from a business standpoint. It just puts the onus on us, though, to be have to be more active. We have to be really.
But didn't it? Why did it work for so long? Why did it work for so many decades? And now businesses are like, well, we're going to have to cut something. Let's cut the pensions.
I think honestly, it's because people probably were living a lot shorter lives. I don't think the benefit was on the books for quite as long. People worked, longer, and unfortunately, I don't think they had as quite of a longevity in retirement when those things were kind of the norm. So I think that's a big key, and just the business trajectories. Businesses change so much. It's hard to lock something in for 50, 60 year commitment in business. Just think about how dramatically things have changed since the 40s and 50s to how businesses operate now and how much more competitive things are now. It's just an evolving component of it. It's probably.
Gotcha. So before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, do you see a difference in how communities of color, per se, approach retirement planning? Are there gaps that still need to be bridged there?
Yeah, I think there is colored color or any type of just different culture just plays a big part of it, right? It's just cultural norms around money are one component of any of this. Right? Like you started this whole conversation, it really our behavior is shaped by our upbringing, and so just depending on culturally what the relationship is with money, it just changes the dynamic and changes the learning curve. Right, is the big piece of what are the areas of financial literacy that may not be super top of mind culturally, and the habits culturally. I think those are the two major components. So you definitely see disparities across all cultures of just how we interact with money and what the mindset is and the habits are. And that's really a big part of the mission that we have at retire.us is to bring this fun consciousness to lift everybody up to at least be aware and understand, how money truly works, because the subtleties make the biggest difference over time. And if we can just become a little bit more aware of our own personal behavior and how that impacts the bigger picture, I think we'll be able to make, a really positive outlook for everybody when it comes to their financial future.
Is there a piece of advice you would give your 21-year-old self, Michael?
Probably not related to finance.
Some other mistakes and mishaps in other areas of your life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think financially, I was I was lucky that financially, going in my upbringing was just being very money conscious because of my upbringing. So I think from that side, I was fortunate to be focused on being frugal and not overextending myself. But I mean, I think the biggest piece of advice, if I could go back, I would actually say I still wish I would have been able to at least put like something aside. I didn't really start saving. And again, I mean, I was running at a deficit for quite some time coming out of college. But still, even with that, finding a way to like scrape away 50, $100 a month could have made a really meaningful difference. Flash forward, you know, all this time later.
Yeah. Is there, what is the worst piece of financial advice that you ever received?
Oh man, I don't know. That's hard to answer. I think that charge it to the game is probably the worst. And although we're all guilty of it at some point, it's fun too when the time is right. It's just like not getting into the habit of doing that, which can be challenging if you do it a lot. But yeah, don't listen to that advice. Don't listen to that advice as a regular lifestyle choice.
Gotcha. Okay. And Mike, I know we do have to let you go, but before we do, what's next for RetireUS?
So a lot of exciting things over the next 12 to 18 months. We're dramatically improving functionality of the platform. We're rolling out a ton of new features to just make things so much easier to see all your money, how it's operating. So a lot of incredible things in the roadmap, integrating AI into the experience as well, just to give you more and more resources of raising your consciousness level, raising your financial wellness levels, and getting everything in a really good, healthy, clear space for your financial future. So definitely excited. Stay tuned. Follow us at retire.us. A big push will be happening probably in about 3 months. We're going to really start to hit a lot of the different social medias and be sharing a ton of content around this stuff, with different tools, tips, techniques, and areas of awareness that we want to bring to the public. So at retire.us on Instagram and LinkedIn are our major channels. And then at RetireUS on the URL, RetireUS. Come visit us. There's a mindfulness tier that's free. Get access to resources. That financial checkpoint will also give you some insights of the current situation now for no cost.
Amazing. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to encourage everyone to check out RetireUS so that we can all develop, again, that financial consciousness. Like Michael was telling us, it's all about being aware of our money habits, our relationship with money, and then taking the necessary steps that we need to understand how to utilize money to work for us. A lot of us don't want to work 40 plus hours a week just to live paycheck to paycheck. And we don't have to. There's so much information in the world. There are so many platforms, again, like RetireUS, that can help us build and become even more confident about money, become more confident about investing, and understand it to a different degree. And again, I want to thank Michael for just giving us this understanding today and helping us know that wherever we are right now in life, we can always get over the hill. We can always get to that next level. It's mostly about just time, resources, and what you put your mind to. I'll see you guys next time.